there somebody in the administration that's in charge of selling this to the American people?
So Valerie is, as you know, a senior advisor to President Obama. She oversees the White House Office of Public Engagement, a very important office to the president. And there's a lot of passion. You were involved in conversations, I know, with the president, as others were. It was an opportunity to strike when the iron was hot, as much as one can strike when the iron is hot in today's Washington climate. But what happened?
Well, I'm not as pessimistic as your the way you phrase that question would indicate at all. In fact, I had breakfast with the vice president this morning just to talk about what more we can do, and he's still feeling very good. The president's in Colorado, on his way to Colorado right now to do an event to keep the passion going.
If there's just one step we can take to prevent more Americans from knowing the pain that some of the families who are here have known, don't we have an obligation to try? Don't we have an obligation to try? If these reforms keep one person from murdering dozens of innocent children, or worshipers, or moviegoers, in a span of minutes, isn't it worth fighting for? I believe it is. That's why I'm going to keep on working. I'm going to keep on giving it my best efforts. But I'm going to need your help. This is not easy. And I'll be blunt. A lot of members of Congress, this is tough for them. Because those who are opposed to any form of legislation affecting guns, they're very well organized and they're very well financed. But it can be done if enough voices are heard. So I want to thank all the police officers who are here for giving their best efforts every single day. I want to thank Governor Hickenlooper for his outstanding leadership. I want to thank all the families who are here for your courage in being willing to take out of this tragedy something positive. I want to thank the people of Colorado for coming together in sensible ways. Let's see if we can get the whole country to do so. Thank you, Denver. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
National Democratic Club, January the 30th, 1995, and I want to quote it and ask you if this is a correct quote. You said it's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way. Is that a correct quote?
It's that part is, but it's taken out of context. What I was talking about was young black men who have all kinds of images thrown at them. At that time, Washington, D.C. was the murder capital of the country. And I was talking about young black guys who see movies, television stuff that glorifies the use of guns, the possession of guns. And what I said is that we need to counter those images, and I use the term brainwash to get these young black guys to think differently about the possession and use of guns.
So you see, we are not only mourning what we've lost, we're also mourning what could have been. This loss leads to great passion in me and in all those family members. But it just doesn't lead to great passion in those family members. It leads to great passion in those who hear about these incidents, those who were the neighbors and friends of these children, those who went to church with them. The passion is deep and powerful, and that passion must and will, I am thoroughly convinced, lead to change. We will not forget. We will fight and keep fighting for gun safety legislation. And I will fight for that legislation until I die. I want to start today by talking about our current fight against the problem of gun trafficking and straw purchasing, which I've been working on for several years. At a bipartisan forum on gun trafficking that I organized last month, we heard from first responders and law enforcement officials who were victims of gun trafficking crimes. Far too often, it is our brave law enforcement officers and first responders who find themselves on the wrong end of a gun barrel. I want to share some of their stories with you today, lest we never forget. And I think we need to constantly remind ourselves of these stories so that they are printed in the DNA of every cell of our brains.
Cafe racer. Minutes later, 4 people were fatally shot, another wounded. As the gunman stands alone amid overturned stools, he's holding what appears to be a gun. We're going to take you now to Chicago, where this past weekend at least 52 people were shot, 8 of them killed.
The victims include 7-year-old Heaven Sutton, shot to death selling candy outside her home.
Most of the shootings took place in poor neighborhoods, far from downtown and tourist attractions. Gunned down in a weekend of violence so typical it didn't even make the front page.
We gather on this corner in the Bronx, comforting each other, trying to make sense of the violence that claimed the 19-year-old's life.
Outside of a church in Stone Mountain. Counselors will be at 2 Brevard County schools to help students. Monica, this is the 20th of February, and already this year, Detroit police tell us there have been 43 murders in the city. Morning, a deadly workplace shooting is being blamed on a former employee. Holly Wagner of our Minneapolis WCCO reports the gunman killed 4 people, including the owner, then killed himself. Although police have not confirmed this, there are reports that she was fired just hours before.
The investigation that became known as Operation Fast and Furious began on October 31, 2009. By the time the indictment was announced on January 25, 2011, over a year later, ATF agents had identified more than 40 people connected to a trafficking conspiracy that was responsible for purchasing over 2,000 firearms for approximately $1.5 million in cash. Yet ATF agents seized only about 100 of those firearms that had been purchased. Numerous firearms that had been bought by straw purchasers were recovered by law enforcement officials at crime scenes in Mexico and in the United States. One such recovery occurred on December 14, 2010, in connection with the tragic shooting death of a federal law enforcement agent, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agent Brian Terry. Shortly thereafter, the flaws in Operation Fast and Furious became known, as a result of the willingness of a few ATF agents to come forward and tell what they knew about it, and as a result of the conduct of the investigation by the Congress. On February 28th, the Attorney General requested my office to conduct a review of Operation Fast and Furious, and we agreed to do so. During the course of our review, we received information about other ATF firearm trafficking investigations that raised serious questions about how they were conducted. Our report reviews one of them, Operation Wide Receiver. We concluded that both Operation Wide Receiver and Operation Fast and Furious were seriously flawed and supervised irresponsibly by ATF's Phoenix Field Division, by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and by ATF headquarters, most significantly in their failure to adequately consider the risk to the public safety in the United States and Mexico. Both investigations sought to identify the higher reaches of firearms trafficking networks by deferring any overt law enforcement action against the individual straw purchasers, such as making arrests or seizing firearms, even when there was sufficient evidence to do so. The risk to the public's safety was immediately evident in both investigations. Almost from the outset of each case, ATF agents learned that the purchases were being financed by violent Mexican drug trafficking organizations, and that firearms were destined for Mexico.
They repeated his threat to issue a contempt citation if the Justice Department doesn't hand over certain documents related to the Fast and Furious gun trafficking investigation. Testifying before the committee, Attorney General Eric Holder said that he will not provide documents related to internal department deliberations. He also said prosecutions could begin as early as the end of March in the case of slain border agent Brian Terry. Guns linked to the Fast and Furious operation were found at the crime scene where Agent Terry was killed in December of 2010. Fast and Furious was run by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives out of Phoenix.
That was more or less Groundhog Day a year ago. Today is Groundhog Day again.
Holder testified today before the House Judiciary Committee, where he was asked about the government's Fast and Furious program, where smugglers were allowed to move guns into Mexico. He also discussed the Justice Department's enforcement of voting rights, among a variety of other issues in this 3-hour and 45-minute hearing.
The Judiciary Committee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recesses of the committee at any time. I'll recognize myself and then the ranking member for an opening statement. Welcome Attorney General Holder to today's oversight hearing of the Department of Justice. Regrettably, the Obama administration has shown a disregard for the Constitution and rule of law in an effort to impose their agenda on the American people. And there are many examples. Efforts to block congressional inquiries about the administration's actions undermine the balance of power on which our nation is founded. The Department of Justice still has not provided enough information about Operation Fast and Furious so that the American public and Congress can judge who in the department bears responsibility for the decisions that led to Agent Brian Terry's death. The Justice Department refuses to comply with congressional subpoenas that may shed light on why this program was authorized and who had knowledge of the inappropriate tactics. The Department of Justice also has failed to provide relevant information that would have revealed the extent of Justice Kagan's involvement in the development of the Affordable Care Act when she was Solicitor General. If she did give counsel on the health care bill, which was her job, then she should recuse herself rather than evaluating the law as a member of the Supreme Court. The Justice Department has refused to let us interview her former assistants. Neglecting to enforce or defend the laws enacted by Congress is another violation of the administration's constitutional obligation to the American people. Under this president, the Justice Department has engaged in a pattern of selective enforcement of the law in order to advance its own partisan agenda. For instance, the Obama administration has sought to prevent state and local authorities from enforcing immigration laws. At the same time, the Justice Department has refused to bring cases against sanctuary cities that violate federal law by prohibiting their officials from communicating with the Department of Homeland Security about illegal immigrants they encounter. Such sanctuary cities directly challenge the federal government's authority to enforce immigration laws. The administration's unwillingness to uphold immigration laws has led to injuries and even death.